Hello and welcome to Brave Souls Rewind, a show where I 200 older characters so you don't have to. Today I'll be taking a look at Hogyoku Aizen, the original one of course, not the new one. Now before you try to get ahead of me and say that this character is gonna be usable still, because he was OP in his own time, I do need to remind you that both his killer and his soul trait aren't exactly the best. Not to mention, since he was one of the first 6 stars, his abilities kinda suck. He doesn't have frenzy and his berserker's only a measly 10%, but that doesn't mean he's useless, does it? I started off with the normal attack damage build as always. I wasn't expecting much from this build considering his attack isn't that high, and he only has a 15% bruiser. With that said, I actually didn't mind this build. He didn't deal that much damage, but since he's ranged, he doesn't really have to. You can just keep your distance until the enemy dies, and the last attack on the string can hit multiple opponents. It does really bother me though that he didn't do that much damage, and really the only reason I am gonna say this is a viable build is because his attack speed isn't that bad. So while it is viable, I wouldn't recommend it if you want to get done something fast. Next up was the strong attack damage build. Now I wasn't really expecting much from this build. I know he has a really high SP, but he doesn't have frenzy and he only has a plus 10 berserker. But I did end up really liking it. He actually did manage to deal a significant amount of damage, and the range on his attacks are actually pretty good. And since his normal attacks are ranged, and cover a good amount of area, you can easily get rid of characters who only have a little bit of health left if your strong attacks didn't take him out instantly. So I'm gonna say this is a viable build, and I was actually surprised it was. And finally we have the strong attack recharge build. And honestly I didn't know what to expect from this build. I was actually expecting the strong attack damage build not to be viable, but the damage was decent enough that it was. But since this build has 60 to 75% less damage on strong attacks, I really didn't know if the damage output was going to be enough to make this build viable. And the answer is just meh. Honestly it wasn't that much damage. It was enough for some enemies to be able to kill them instantly, but for some of the stronger ones it took several strong attacks. Fortunately they just keep coming back to you with the strong attack recharge build, but it just didn't feel fun to hit them over and over and over again. However, I am still gonna say this build is viable. It may not be fun, and it may feel like a chore, but the bottom line is you could still use this build in modern raids. That said, I wouldn't take this Aizen to anything harder than a 5-star raid. Even though his builds are still usable, a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's ranged, so it's just a lot of chipping away at opponents.
僕からのレクイエムだ。クライマックスと行こうか。
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel. And let me know what other characters do you want to see in a rewind.